I'm Stephen Jarvis, and you're watching From the Cape with Bass, hosted by Daniel Peterson.
Good day, everybody. Today we're here with great bass player Stephen Jarvis. Stephen, can you tell us what your first musical experience was?
My first musical experience, that probably going to start way back just listening to music around the house. So both my parents, they're a good generation older than me, kind of a thing. So they're very much boomers, and so my mom's a kind of more of the hippie kind. So we always had Bob Dylan, Janis Joplin, like mainly acoustic singer-songwriters. And then my dad, he came from a kind of like a sailing background. So his whole thing was more kind of like big group sing-along thing, so that like Sweet Caroline, that kind of stuff, like the more the cheese stuff. But hey, cheese is good, man.
Stephen, what drew you to the bass? What is your story there?
Okay, so bass. So funny enough, so I originally from Zim, and I moved down to Cape Town. And when I got to Cape Town, I was at school, and there was this one guy. He was he was in my grade. This really cool guy, Angus Hardcastle, and like he was this crazy kind of like, at the time he always used to wear hippie pants every civvies day and never had shoes.
I realize you still remember his surname.
No, he's still playing. He's a mad cat up in Josie now, kind of a thing. He's cool. But basically, so he used to walk around with a acoustic bass and just slapping it like no one could, kind of thing. And it was like, I must have been what, I think 12 or 13. This is just like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Okay.
And then from that kind of thing, I started to get a bit more interested in music. And funny enough, as an English kid from the southern suburbs of Cape Town, Polisica and Van Cooke Cartel and all that kind of stuff, because that was all on MCAR. And I remember coming home from school in my school uniform, just sitting down and watching these local bands. And I got the bug of just being like, I want to be in a band, I want to gig, I want to tour, I want to do this kind of thing. And my best friend, he had just gotten into guitar, and then I started trying to get into guitar, and he was a lot better at guitar than me, so I was like, okay, like he's my main chum, I want to make sure that I'm in a band with him. So we both can't always play guitar, kind of a thing. So it's like, okay, cool, I'm going to go for bass. Because then also I had this memory of this cool guy playing bass. I was like, oh, okay, cool. If I play bass, also kind of like, I don't need to stand out that much, kind of a thing. Because like at the time I was like very, very shy and very kind of like to myself. And yeah, that really kind of was the start of it. And I was like, okay, cool. I want to get into music to play into bands. And that's where the love of bass came from. And I was always drawn to bass lines and low end and that kind of stuff, and like those always used to catch my ear a little bit more than like the actual melodies of the songs and stuff.
So which band is your favorite band?
Local bands? Well, yeah, right now probably has to be a band called the Shabs.
The Shabs.
Yeah, so it's John Shaban and Ryan MacArthur. And basically, funny story, so John used to be in a band called Cat and Stew back in the day, and like I used to watch them on MCAR. And then eventually through just the gigging scene or whatever, I got to know him. Eventually actually ended up working for him. I used to do sound down the road, Musenberg, kind of a thing for him on Wednesday nights. And basically through that, then like got to know him, and like he's one of my favorite songwriters, let alone musicians. And so they're like a kind of like a folk punk band. And it's quite interesting because Ryan then plays upright. So like an upright bass and a kind of like, it is folk, but it is kind of like, it's got this punk undertone, and it's, I don't know, it's a good combination of good songwriting and really good musos playing good music together.
That's so cool, man. Stephen, can you tell me about your musical education? Did you go for lessons? Are you still learning? What is the story there?
Yeah, so there was a funny story with that. So back in my schooling days, I was doing art in like grade 8 and 9, and there was a mess up in my year when you could choose your subjects, and no one kind of tried it out because no one was doing art and then wanted to get into music as well. So, and I was the only one. I was like, I'm very dyslexic, so like French or puzzle or something like that. That wasn't really going to work too well for me. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, I can do this creative thing a bit. Let me try and like do this. And like at that time, I just picked up the bass. I'm playing probably maybe 5-6 months, kind of a thing. And then I was like, okay, let me try get into music for grade 10 to matric kind of thing. And I got in. But then it came with this very steep learning curve of being like, okay, because like I went to Sax, and there was a thing where basically in our year they wanted us all as grade 10s to try and do our grade 5 theory cracks, and we're like, oh, okay, I don't know how to read music, I need to catch up now in a year, and I managed to do it and get it, and that was all on the amazing staff we had back then. We had this amazing teacher who really kind of helped me develop and push me as a musician, Gerard Diaga. He's this really cool like classical cat where he basically, he's like, his thing is like arranging and orchestration, but he always like, he has this like this wit that's as sharp as the sharpest knife ever, and it's I don't know, I found that he really encouraged me in that kind of sense, especially in those early days where I wasn't doing that well in the beginning. Obviously, it takes a while for you to get your fingers around the bass and that kind of stuff. So yeah, he was a big influence, just kind of supporting me and just kind of telling me, cool, keep on like fueling the passion side of it. So I didn't lose that. And then so then starting doing it as an actual subject, I got a teacher, and I was lucky to get Luke Otter. So he's actually, I think he went to UCT and did the whole, he was actually a cellist, but then he got into like the jazz band and that kind of stuff through that. So basically, so he, and his approach to bass teaching, I found really kind of worked well for me personally, where it was this, okay, cool, initially it's not going to be like, you're not going to be learning all the cool fun licks or whatever. You're going to sit there and you're going to make sure you get your scales, make sure you get your shapes and all that kind of stuff, and really taught me the basics of what you need as like as a working musician, where it's like, cool, these chords, like because I was so out of music by that time, I was always kind of playing catch up with like the school's jazz band or whatever, so I never really made it into that. But it was that thing where he tried to really teach me, cool, this is how you construct a bass line, cool, this is what you're gonna need to look out for, and all this kind of stuff, and like reading chord charts and all that kind of thing. And yes, you know, that that stuff I still use to today, kind of thing. And it just it went a long way.
Stephen, can you tell me about the albums that you've worked on and the artists that you're currently working for?
Okay, well, let me start with the albums I've worked on, and I'll try and work through chronologically. So my initial first band, kind of, we got together in high school, kind of a thing, and we did that for about a year, and that was going pretty well, and we ended up, through all our gigs or whatever, saving up all our money, and through a friend who had a little home studio, we ended up recording an EP with them. So that was from my band Backdoor Amber, and we recorded an EP called, I think it was Modern Space Indie, and it was this, it was very roughly recorded, mainly on our part, kind of a thing, but it was a really good learning curve, where it was my first experience in the studio, and kind of realizing the importance of making demos that to click and all this kind of a thing, learning the hard way. But that was the first EP we put out. That was end of 2016, and then we did a little kind of tour and stuff around with that, and then after that, then that kind of fell down, and we decided to go separate ways on that. And then I started pushing. Then I still wanted to perform, so I started doing solo stuff. So that's where I kind of got a bit more of like the singer-songwriter thing, because as cool as listening to a bass solo for an hour or so is, not everyone can always appreciate that. And it's a bit hard to book yourself as a solo bass player.
Definitely. Unless you're Victor Wooten.
Yeah, no, exactly. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. But so then started doing that, and then through that, I basically I started just develop this just the network of musicians and stuff, because also I found out it was a lot easier as a solo musician to, cool, am I free? Can I play this gig? Kind of a thing. And then also it's less people to split money with.
Yeah.
Can't complain. So we did. So I did that for about a year or so, and then that led me to one of the bands I'm currently in now, the Poor Princes. So I had met Brad from the Poor Princes somehow through a friend of a friend at a party once, and I remember he was studying sound engineering. I was like, okay, cool. I want to try and see if I can get this guy to record my stuff, kind of thing, because like I want to put stuff out. And then it ended up me finding out he was an amazing songwriter, like hands down the most talented songwriter I've ever come across in my life personally. And like literally, he was like, cool, yeah, no, I'm trying to get a backing band. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, count me in, kind of a thing. So then did that, and then eventually we decided this is working a bit too well for it to be as a backing band. So then we decided to formalize it and make it a proper band. So then we became the Poor Princes, and then did that, must be in 2018, got together, and then we ended up putting out our first single, Poor Prince of Nowhere, and that was really cool because that we recorded with the band's like really good friend who's a sound engineer, this guy Carl Leese, and literally he made it sound amazing. It was great. So we were super chuffed with that. We put that out, and then we got quite a few views and stuff on YouTube, so we were really chuffed with that. And then carried on gigging, and then through just gigging and stuff, we ended up getting onto Up the Creek. We got selected for basically kind of like a faux battle of the bands at Up the Creek, and we ended up winning that, so that then we got booked the next year as the main stage slot on the Thursday night. But like, Up the Creek holds a special place in my heart because I initially went there, I think it was 2016, as a bartender. So I went from bartending to main stage, kind of a thing, and
cool.
So I was playing a battle of the bands there with my solo stuff, and basically one of the other contestants was just talking to him, and then his girlfriend Frances Clare, basically she was looking to put a band together to release an EP she had recorded, and I like the Poor Princes was the only bass gig I had at the time, so I wanted another bass gig, so I was like, okay, cool, yeah, I'm glad to let's get involved with this. And it was really cool because Fran's like a very acoustic singer-songwriter, so it was quite a nice learning curve for me, kind of being it was a good lesson in learning to not play, kind of a thing. It was that thing where you learn to appreciate space, and like the less the better, kind of a thing. And everyone else in the band were all hectic music teachers, kind of a thing. So it was literally just me and Fran, who are my age, 24 now, kind of a thing. Everyone else was about 30, 40, kind of a thing. But they'd all been teachers and stuff. So funny enough, Devin, the guitarist in that band, was the guitar teacher at my school, kind of a thing. So it was this weird kind of full circle thing through that. And basically, so then we were going to do a full album, and then we decided to split it up into 2 EPs. But that was a crazy recording thing, because we ended up we spent about 2 days tracking that, but it was 2 separate days. And on the one day, we only had we had 4 hours to track 6 songs. So it was pretty much, after setting up and everything, we ended up having like 3 hours or whatever. So we're like, okay, cool, live track this stuff, and we have 2 takes of each song. There you go, done, kind of a thing. No redos. And that I found like that was also a really cool way for me to kind of force yourself to really focus and get it done as quickly as you can. Because that's the thing with nowadays where you recording, so easy to, okay, cool, let me put those bits together. No, play it properly one time through.
Makes sense. you tell me about the gear that you have?
Yeah, so basically my number one, my only bass, it's a Fender P-Bass Deluxe Active Special. It's a 2014 model. Really cool. It's got a really nice neck where it's it's not a P-bass, it's not a jazz neck. So I always find P-bass is a little chunky to move around fluidly, and then jazz necks, you end up dancing around too much. So it was a good way to kind of keep myself in line with that. Yeah, it's all stock standard, got active electronics kind of thing, P-bass, and a jazz pickup. Only other thing I've done to it is place the bridge for high mass bridge, just to kind of get a bit more sustain out of it. And then my pride and joy, my little baby here, is my Mark bass rig. So what this is a Marcus Miller 800 watt signature head, and I think it's a New Yorker 2x10 cab. Amazing. I love Mark bass. They're so warm, and the nice thing I find is that paired with this, where you got active electronics, so you can do most of your EQing on your bass. And then with Mark bass kind of being very, very clear but very warm as well, you can kind of hide that it's active a bit. So you can make it sound a bit passive.
Can you imagine?
So that's my beautiful rig at home. And then when I go on tours and that kind of stuff, the main thing I use, I've got a little Sans amp driver.
Okay.
So that's just, it saves me lugging around an amp. Just make sure I stand next to a wedge or close to a top, kind of a thing. Because I love my gear and all that kind of stuff, and just when it comes to touring, it's so much easier to just have less.
I can imagine. Yeah. I don't know.
Especially when you're trying to fit like 4 or 5 people into Kia Picanto and you're trying to like head down the West Coast or something. It's a bit it's a bit tight. So space is always key with that. Yeah, no. So I used to be quite into pedals for my bass. Like I used to have like octa pedals and stuff like that, and those are great. But I don't know, maybe it's call me maturing, but I'm getting over that and just more and more just going straight into my amp and trying to get as many sounds as I can, more from my hands, my fingers. You know, again, carrying less around.
There we go. Simon, do you have any advice for young up-and-coming bass players and musicians out there?
Okay, the main thing I've learned personally for my journey, kind of a thing, was pretty much I learned how to. My main thing would be as self-sufficient as possible. So before you look for a booking agent, before you look for a manager, learn to do that yourself. Once you can like properly say that, cool, I'm at a point where I'm too busy and I can't handle this, then look for someone else, kind of a thing. Because it also, firstly, you're making the connections yourself. And in this day and age, it's not always your chops, it's this combination of your ability plus who you know at what time.
Yeah, we go.
So it's that thing where it's building your network, and I think that's one of the most underrated things that people miss a lot. Like I didn't study after school like at one of the colleges or something like that. I just went straight into gigging, and I had to cut my teeth quite quickly with that one, kind of a thing. And it's that thing where if no one knows who you are, no one's going to book you. Yeah. So how do you get them to know who you are? So learn how to book your own shows, learn how to run your own events.
There we go.
Meet all those people. And then eventually, through now you're booking other bands and stuff to join you on lineups and all that kind of stuff, then you're building connections and all this kind of stuff. And you can, from there, you grow this resource. That's what I think contacts are. It's a wealth of resource that you can call upon, where, so that when down the line you're recording an album or something like that, and you're like, cool, that band had a really good violin player, and I need violin on the song. You can call them up, kind of thing, and you have this personal connection where it just makes everything a lot easier, I find. So definitely be self-sufficient. So learn to book all your stuff yourself, and also don't underestimate the power of turning up early. Literally half an hour before your sound check makes such a difference to everyone involved, and develop a basic knowledge on sound and sound equipment, because somewhere along the line you're going to be playing a venue or something like this, and there's not going to be a sound guy, or there's going to be some wires crossed and no one's going to know what's going to happen. And just being able to be like, okay, cool, quickly help set it up and sort it out. You move on faster with your day. You look a little bit better in their eyes because you helped, and also your gig goes along smoothly.
Stephen, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for making time for me and from the Cape with Bass. Godspeed on your journey. Thank you so much for liking and sharing this video with your fellow bass community. Please follow from the Cape with Bass on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you so much.